you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Continue. Good morning, everybody. We're just waiting a moment until a couple more classes join us, and I'll be with you in about 30 seconds. Good morning and welcome to the Meet Your Future campaign. My name is Laura and I'm part of the Bridge Greater Manchester team at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Meet Your Future was launched in April 2019 to enable more young people like you to meet with and have meaningful conversations with employers whilst experiencing different workplaces. Over the last year, we have been speaking with young people from all 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester to find out how you are feeling, how you feel you should be supported now and into your future regarding careers. We have been listening and we have learned a lot. We have developed a suite of information, resources and services that are here to help you. This can be found on GMAX. That's our website, which I'm popping into the chat box in a second, which many of you are probably already familiar with, and please speak to your teacher if you want to find out more. That's a one-stop shop where you can really research careers and opportunities. We have also adapted the Meet Your Future campaign to better fit what you have been telling us. Throughout this academic year, you will be able to join sessions and chat with Greater Manchester and national employers about growth sectors across Greater Manchester, different pathways, and the vast array of careers opportunities that are available to you in the future right here in Manchester. In this session, I am so excited that we have the North West Ambulance Service with us today, an incredibly busy team of people that have been able to have the morning with us to tell you all about careers within NWAS. That's the North West Ambulance Service. So with us today is Vinny, a paramedic, Abby, a call handler, and we also have Chloe from the Careers Hub at Manchester Foundation Trust. So hopefully this session will inform you, inspire you, and show you why you should be hopeful and optimistic about your future in Greater Manchester. Throughout the session, please make use of the question box for questions, and we'll cover those at the Q&A section at the very end. If you would like to use captions or subtitles during the event, please select Captions Subtitles On in your video controls. I am now delighted to introduce Chloe from the Careers team to start you off.
Hello everyone and welcome to this session today. So I am Chloe and I am from the Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Careers Hub. A bit of a mouthful, but basically we work across Greater Manchester to support you in school or college in investigating the options that you have in terms of careers within the NHS. So we set up this session for you today alongside GMCA with the North West Ambulance Service for you to find out more about what the NWAS does. That's a good little acronym for you guys to remember, NWAS. What they do and to figure out more about the different jobs that are available. If you've seen any of my sessions before, which some of you may have done through Meet Your Future or through our kind of our own sessions, you will know that the NHS has a huge workforce of around 1.5 million people in the UK. We're the 5th largest employer in the world, and we are a really large employer in Manchester. Within the NHS, there are over 350 different types of jobs, so there are loads of different roles, and today Abby is going to talk us through some of the different roles within NWAS, and you'll discover it's not just paramedics, it's not just the roles that you will immediately associate with the ambulance service. There are a lot of other roles that are out there that are available, and we're going to explore some of those with you today. So as Laura discussed, we're going to hand over to Abby in a moment, who's going to give you an intro into North West Ambulance Service, as well as a bit more about her own time in the trust. And then we're going to also hear from Vinny, who is a paramedic, and there'll be times for you guys to ask questions. Please do ask questions at any point throughout the session, and we will answer those at an appropriate time or at the end when we have our Q&A. So yeah, I'll pass you over to Abby, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about NWAS.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Good morning, everybody. My name's Abby. As Chloe's already said, I am a call handler, a 999 call handler, also known as an emergency medical dispatcher. So just going to do a little bit of a brief introduction. I will talk about my role a little bit more, but as Chloe's just said, there's so many roles in NWAS. So, you know, people do call 999. It doesn't always mean that we have to go to hospital. Okay, and that's our motto, is getting the right care at the right time in the right place. Okay, so we never close. We're there 24/7, 365 days a week, and we employ over 6,000 staff. So if you could just play the little YouTube video, we're just going to watch a little video and just going to give you a little bit of insight into the roles here. It's only a couple of minutes long. Okay, so apologies in advance if that music's stuck in your head for the rest of the day, because I know it will be with me. So just going to reiterate, if they put the next slide up, please, Laura. I'm just going to reiterate what was put on the video there. So as you can see, we save more than 7 million people across 5,400 square miles. So we go all the way up to Cumbria, and then Cheshire, Mersey, and Greater Manchester, and Glossop in Derbyshire. Okay, we receive approximately 1.3 million 999 calls and respond to over 1 million emergencies a year. Okay, so sometimes we don't always, just because you phone 999, it doesn't mean to say you're going to get an emergency ambulance, and I'll just go through that a little bit in a minute when I go through the roles. Okay, you will have noticed the white ambulances there on that slide. So there are patient transport vehicles. So we make over 1.5 million journeys. Okay, so they're for people who, for instance, need kidney dialysis on a regular basis, chemotherapy patients who haven't got the means of getting to the hospital themselves, and the big white wagons, as they're known, you know, for people who are in wheelchairs or on stretchers. Couldn't think of the word then. Okay, you'd also seen that 111 health advisors there in the white polo shirts. Okay, so they offer medical help or advice, and they handle over 1.5 million calls a year. Okay, we employ around 6,300 staff in over 300 different roles. Okay, I'm still learning. I couldn't tell you what them 300 different roles are. Okay, and we have over 1,000 emergency and non-emergency vehicles operating in the Northwest, with an annual budget of 357 million, which seems a lot of money, but when you bat it out to over what we do and what we have to use it on, you know, it doesn't go as far as you think. So if you just put the next slide up for us, please, Laura. Okay, so just as I said, we'll just run through. So with advanced paramedics and senior paramedics and our paramedics. Okay, I won't talk too much about them because I'll leave that to Vincent, so he's more in the know than I am. But you start as a paramedic, and with any role you can work yourself up, you know, to get more skills and to broaden your horizons and, you know, go higher in your roles. We have EMT1, apologies, EMT2, we don't actually cover that role. And EMT1 is a support to paramedic, so emergency medical technician. They are on the road, and they're just, again, they haven't got as many qualifications as a paramedic, and majority of our EMT1s do go on to complete the paramedic sciences course. Again, I'll leave Vinny to chat to you about that in a moment. Okay, and we have a urgent care practitioners desk, which you need an honours degree, and your specialist practitioners. Okay, so we also have you know, we have helimed doctors, etc., etc. We do have nurses and doctors working for us, but they're usually, we don't come fresh into the role as a newly qualified nurse or a doctor. It's people who've had a lot of experience over the years. And we also have paramedics and nurses in the control room. As I said before, sometimes people phone 999 and they don't actually need an ambulance. So our paramedics will call them back, and they're widely just known as clinicians. Call them back, have a chat, delve a little bit more into what's going on, and see if we can get them the right care from the home, maybe, get them a prescription, etc. We had our call takers, and they were the first on the screen with all the different screens. That's myself. We have, so they're in 111 and 999. We have our dispatchers who then go, they're responsible for sending the ambulances out. So we have 3 emergency operation centres in the Northwest. Okay, we have one in Liverpool by the airport, we have one in Parkway in Manchester, and we have one in Broughton in Preston. So although what's known as a virtual call centre, we will take calls from all over the Northwest, but our dispatch units are central to the area. So, you know, I could take a call and someone will say, oh, I'm outside this bar on Berry New Road. And I'm, yeah, you know, that one next to the Chippy. And I'm like, no, sorry. Whereas my dispatcher, a dispatcher would know that. Do you know what I mean? So that's why we do it that way. Our urgent care assistants and our PTS drivers, as I said, they are, you know, they're fully trained in first aid and basic life support, and they are responsible for taking people to non-emergency journeys. We also have voluntary car drivers. So again, people who take people to non-emergency appointments, but they can walk, they're mobile, but again, they just, for whatever means, they may not have any transport links or any family to support them. So if you want to fancy, getting a little bit of voluntary work under your belt when you're 18 and you've got your driving license, it's all good. And it's nice to just be able to take people, get to know people and have a little chat. And yeah, that's about it on the roles. But there's so many different roles. We have corporate side of things as well. We have finance departments, we have a massive IT department, we do apprenticeships for them. As you've seen, we also have a mechanics apprenticeship. Contrary to popular belief, ambulances are not run on fairy dust. They do break down like other vehicles, so we need someone on call 24 hours a day to help if that does arise. So yeah, I mean, the job I'm in at the moment, the widening access team, is responsible for holding events like this, going out to talks, helping people who have made that decision, who are doing health and social care, who want to become a paramedic, getting into that role, giving them a little bit of a help and a push start. Again, this role I didn't even know existed. I was having a chance chat with someone who knew someone in the break room. So yeah, there's loads and loads of stuff. So I'm just going to talk a little bit now about how I got into NWAS. So my journey, well, my desire to start in the NHS was started when I was 17. I worked in a nursing home over weekends. I was a domestic assistant and I absolutely loved it. I've got a passion for working with elderly people. And a lot of respect for them. And at that time, my granddad also had a massive stroke and developed dementia. So as a family, we cared for them. So I wanted to get into geriatric nursing. 17, couldn't get on the course, so I decided I'd put an application form in for some casual work over the summer in the Home Office. And 20 years it took me. That's how long I stayed there for. I was 17. I was lucky to be in a good stable job on a good wage. I'm not saying that was the right or wrong thing to do, but that's just where life took me. I had 2 children. I met my husband, and whilst it was a very fulfilling career, and my heart was never in it. It was never in it, but sometimes you just get stuck in a rut, so to speak, because it's a very it's a very stable job. You're a parent and you just do what you've got to do. So I finally took the push when I was 37. I've got a family member who works for NWAS, and she was for years saying to me, Abby, you'd love the road, you'd be great, you need to get on the road. And I didn't have my science GCSE. So another option for people who want to be one of our emergency medical technicians, a lot of our staff come in and they be call handlers, and they do get some experience in place of as healthcare experience in place of a science qualification. Then they go on to become EMTs, and then they progress to paramedic. Okay, so that was my intention to join when I joined NWAS. As we've said, so many roles, that's not the way it went, because 111 and 999 have different triage systems at the moment. We are merging into one for NHS Pathways England. So I then got a secondment working on the training team. So I am actually also a qualified 111 health advisor. So I had to learn that system. Then I had to go to Newcastle for a couple of weeks and live in Newcastle to put that into practice, because they already use that system. And then I had to come home and teach all the new staff. And then, as I said, just by chance, I had a little talk with someone. I thought, oh, I fancy this job. So there's just loads and loads of things, and I suppose there is a little moral to my story, and I wouldn't recommend, hopefully that you all make the decision that you want to make at this age, but it's tough. It's tough. The toughest and most enjoyable years of your life, your late teens, but it's very difficult because you've got to make these decisions, and I just want to show you that I am a prime example that if you make the wrong decision now, change it, and don't be frightened to do that. I was very, very, I took a big massive gamble, because if I'd have failed my 6-week training in NWAS, I'd have had no job. So I did take a massive gamble, but it is the best gamble I ever took. It's one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done. I love it. We are just one big green family. The opportunities that I've been given in 3 years, I think I've had more opportunities and more enjoyment in 3 years than I did in 20 in the Home Office. So, you know, it's never too late. If you don't make the right decision now, it's not the end of the world. Just you know, it's always suitable for change, you know. But as I said, I hope you do. I'm not encouraging you not, you know, not to do the right thing. But yeah, you know, do what you think's best for now. And you know, and if that turns out to be the wrong decision, or you know, your pathway takes you a different way, so be it. You know, it'll all work out for you. So that's sort of me now. I can pass back to Laura.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Chloe, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just going to jump in there. But yeah, thank you, Abby, for all of that. It's so interesting to hear about North West Ambulance Service and your route into it. And I think, like you said, you know, we think of the ambulance service as, you know, just kind of paramedics or just your 999 calls. But even looking at that list there, when you break those down, there are so many people working in kind of the emergency response team, but then also, like you said, behind the scenes in terms of like mechanics and you know, the paramedics need to be paid, so there's admin staff and there's finance staff and there's all of those other kind of people working in the background. So you know, it's a huge sector, and it's so you know, it's obvious that everyone's there working, but I think once we don't often think about it, do we? And I think, you know, I never really thought about, oh, I wonder who works for NWAS. And then now that you do, you're like, oh, wow, it's lots of people. So, yeah, it's so interesting. And I think it just shows that if anyone out there is thinking, yeah, I want to be a paramedic, and I speak to lots of students who want to be paramedics, that is an option for you. But there's also lots of other options where you can still be working in that sector, but entering through a few different routes. So I think now what will be quite interesting to do is to hear from Vincent, who's going to talk to us about his role as a paramedic. And after we've kind of heard a bit from Vincent and his journey and his role, then we can have our Q&A. So yeah, as we kind of hear from Vincent, please feel free to pop questions in the chat. But what we will do is give you a couple of minutes in the classroom once we've heard from Vincent to have a little chat in your classroom and think of some questions together. And then we will hopefully answer those for you. So yeah, I'll pass over to Vincent, who can just give us a bit of an overview of his, if I can talk, a bit of an overview of his role, and you know, a bit more about how he got into that.
Good morning, all. Yeah, so mine's probably less inspirational, I think, as a story of how I got into the ambulance service, but nonetheless, it's my pathway in. So when I left school, I got a part-time job as a lifeguard, which was, I suppose, a little bit of a link to that life-saving element. And I think for me, I just seen an advert in a paper that was advertising jobs in the ambulance service. I had no idea what that entailed. It was on the patient transport, which was the minibus type ones that transport patients around, and that was my pathway in. I set off on that pathway. I started to see what the emergency side was like, and it was a side that I liked and thought looked quite exciting. And then from there, I was able to apply, got my paramedic job, and then as I worked through the paramedic, I got the advanced paramedic role. And then I'm now a consultant paramedic for education. So I lead all the education side of things at the moment, which is kind of exciting. I still respond, see patients, but I get to work with all the universities. So if that's the pathway that you're going through, then it's probably an element that I'll have something to do with as you come through that education side. If you're going to do your degree in paramedicine, or if you were going to come in the route as the EMT one as well, that's another side of it. So that was my route into the ambulance service in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer anything around the emergency response element that we do, the roles that we have as well. I'm happy to look at them as well and answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. And just to kind of clarify, I suppose, at this stage, a little bit more around the routes into paramedics, because you kind of touched on it a little bit there. But for you guys now at school, the kind of the clearest way into paramedics is by going to university and studying a paramedics degree, which is what you do the teaching on, isn't it? Or supporting the teaching on. Vincent. So that's kind of the most sort of direct route. But as both Abby and Vincent have touched on, there are a few kind of different apprenticeship options and routes through. So you can come in as an EMT and do a kind of an apprenticeship in that. And then once you've kind of qualified as an EMT, then you can kind of go on to do another apprenticeship in paramedics. So I don't know, Vincent, if you just want to explain a little bit about so we've mentioned EMT, we've mentioned paramedics, and we've mentioned like senior paramedics or advanced paramedics. So I wonder if you can just maybe explain briefly some of the differences between all of those roles.
Yeah, of course. So there's a couple of routes into the ambulance service. One of them, you can come direct into a university such as University of Cumbria, University of Central Lancashire, Liverpool, John Moores or Edge Hill. Those are our partner universities, in Bolton now as well. So you can come direct in through that way, and that would be your 3-year degree. Pretty standard degree, really. 50% sat in a classroom being taught around anatomy and physiology, the things that we'll see and how you manage patients, and then 50% is actually coming out on an ambulance, with a real ambulance, on working with a paramedic who would be your mentor, as we call them, or your practice educator. And that's where you put your skills into practice. So at the end of your 3 years, you'd become a qualified paramedic, and then you're able to apply then to the ambulance service to work as a paramedic. The other route in, you can come in direct to the ambulance service, and you would apply to be an EMT1. So the difference between an EMT1 and a paramedic, generally speaking, is the skills that you have. So the things, you're almost what we call the scope of practice. So your scope of practice is the things that you're able to do, and the drugs you're able to give, the procedures you're able to do in a pre-hospital setting. So obviously an EMT1 doesn't have as many drugs, doesn't have as many procedures that they can do as for example, a paramedic. As an EMT1, you would do a qualification as an apprentice, and then you would move on, do a couple of years. The good thing with that route is you're earning money, whereas obviously if you do a degree, you're paying for the degree and you're not earning money at the same time. So the EMT1 obviously doesn't get paid as much as a paramedic, but it is a way of getting into the ambulance service. And then we have a paramedic apprenticeship set up for all our EMT1s that then are able to apply for that, and then you do a couple of years course whilst you're working, and then you become a paramedic at the end of that. So from a paramedic point of view, the next route movement upwards, if you like, if you can call it that, is into a senior paramedic team leader role. So a senior paramedic team leader has some more clinical skills, so they're able to give a few more drugs and do a few more procedures. And they also manage the paramedics in terms of managing their sickness, managing their clinical leadership, which is around, it's almost like their line manager. So they would have a team of paramedics underneath them that they work with, probably one or two on one ambulance station. Then the next route is the advanced paramedic. So the advanced paramedic predominantly works on a car, solo responding. So they're the ones that you'll see sat in a car on a bridge that are on standby and things like that. And they also do some other things alongside that role. So obviously as an ambulance service, we're very transparent in what we do. So we see a lot of patients. So some of them will complain, and they'll put a complaint into the ambulance service if they're not happy with the service. So an advanced paramedic would do a clinical review of an incident to check that we've done everything that we should. Is there any learning, anything we can learn to make sure that we do it better next time? The advanced paramedic also has more skills in terms of procedures. So again, an advanced paramedic is starting to do surgical procedures at the roadside or in the home, in the pre-hospital setting. I won't get into too much details because some people might be a bit squeamish, but generally it's cutting holes in people and putting things in them and fixing things at the side of the road, the things that are absolutely crucial to be done in a life-saving situation. I'm sure if you've watched the programme Ambulance or any of those blue light programmes, you'll see some of them gory things that we do. So that's the advanced paramedic. And then what isn't on that slide is the consultant paramedic, which is the next one up. And that's the role that I'm in. Now, the consultant paramedic, there isn't many of us actually in the country, to be honest. There's not many consultant paramedics. I lead on all the education stuff, but there are area consultants. So we have the same skill set as an advanced paramedic. We will do our degree, but we'll also do our MSc as well. And some of the consultants have also done their PhD, which is something we work towards as well. So we actually get a doctorate at the end of that. So a lot of these roles are aligned to your education. Now, I was Mr. Average at school in terms of academic. I was C's across the board, as we used to call it. So right in the middle, not really high achieving. And I didn't do my degree till I got into this job. So that was my route into it. I got the job and then I started studying. My recommendation is do as much as you can at the earliest point, because obviously once you get to this, like the older stage in life, you start having families, you start buying houses, and it's quite a difficult juggle. So you're in a good position now to start looking at studying if this is a route that you want to go down. But that's the kind of clinical kind of structure in a nutshell. Apologies, Matt, I've got a puppy and she's going bonkers in the background. So if you can hear a dog barking, that's what it is. That's the fun of working from home, isn't it?
No, that's great. Thank you so much. That really does kind of outline those different roles and that progression. So that's fantastic. Thank you. So I think now what would be really good is to give everyone in our classrooms and at home today a few minutes to have a little chat, talk to your teacher if there's any questions that you want to ask, either myself, Vincent, Abby, any of us about working in the NHS, working in NWAS, or about their roles or routes specifically. Please feel free to pop any questions in the chat. I'll give us until kind of like five minutes, until sort of 5 past, just to sort of answer, have a little chat, think of some questions, pop them in the Q&A box. I know Laura's been posting away in there so you can see where those questions may come through. So we'll give you a few minutes just to kind of have a little chat in the classroom and see if there's anything that you would like to ask any of us. So we'll be here for 5 minutes. We may turn our cameras off so we're not just sort of staring at you waiting, but we'll give you a few minutes just to have that kind of conversation, but please pop any questions in the Q&A box and I will give you a little kind of warning when we're finishing on time. Okay, fantastic. Okay, just one more minute here, everyone, and then we will answer your questions. Okay, so thank you everyone for popping your questions into the Q&A. That's fantastic. So we will now go through some of those with you and have a little chat around some of these questions. So Laura, if you want to kind of kick us off with any questions for Vincent or Abby? Or myself.
I will. Thank you. I'll go with our first question here. It says, if you are to go through an EMT1 route to become a paramedic, you mentioned that you'd then go on to do a paramedic apprenticeship course. Would this be like a university course, or is this a course designed by NWAS?
So the initial course when you join would be an NWAS course. It's the Associate Ambulance Practitioner course. It's called the AAP course. So that's a nationally recognised qualification. So we run that in-house. It's around 10 to 14 weeks because we put blue light driving on top of that as well. So you do that initially. So you come in, you do your induction, you go and do that course. Once that course is finished, you're then a probationary EMT1, and then you go out and you work on an ambulance. There are restrictions in what you can do and who you can work with, but you're out on a frontline ambulance at that point. And you'd be working with a more senior qualified clinician. At that point, you then work your way through building a portfolio. After about a year to 2 years, you'll have completed that portfolio and you'll do your endpoint assessment. And then once you've done your endpoint assessment, that's you qualified as an EMT1. At that point, you have to do another 2 years as a qualified EMT1 in experience. So again, that's working full time as a frontline EMT1. So that's on an emergency ambulance the vast majority of the time, and working with a senior clinician, gaining experience. You're attending all categories of emergencies. So you'll be seeing cardiac arrests, you'll be assisting in delivering babies, you'll be doing all sorts of those kind of things. Once you've done that, once you've done your 2 years after your endpoint assessment, you're then qualified then to go on to a paramedic apprenticeship. Now that's through the University of Cumbria. Now the way they do it is a degree is 3 years. So we class what you've just done there as year 1. So then you only need 2 more years to do. So then you go and do 2 years with the University of Cumbria. That's a part-time course in terms of you've probably got a couple of days at university, some assignments to do, but you're also working as an EMT1 and gaining experience. And the good thing about that is you're able to then use paramedic skills. So one of the skills, and if you've ever been in hospital, they put a little tube in your vein. It's called cannulation. So one of the skills you learn as a paramedic, which is a paramedic skill, would be cannulation. So as an EMT1, you cannot do that. However, once you become a student paramedic with the University of Cumbria, they teach you how to do it, and then you can do that under the guidance of a paramedic. So then you start putting them skills into practice on the actual road. That's 2 years, and then after them 2 years, you graduate as a fully fledged paramedic, and then that's you working as a paramedic. And then it's up to you what you want to do. Then you've then got your full BSc, just like the other guys that went through the direct entry route of leaving school, A levels, 3 years as a BSc course at a university. So at the end of it, your timings are maybe different, but you actually come out as the same qualification. And then, you know, the world's your oyster. And once you've got the paramedic ticket, once you've got that registration, actually, we want you to stay in NWAS, obviously, but actually there's a number of paramedics now working in emergency departments at the hospital, GP surgeries, in the primary care setting, because actually the skills are quite transferable. Or you can look at working on the helicopter with us. You know, a lot of people like to do that. I've worked on the helicopter. It's super exciting. It's really good. once you're a paramedic, you kind of want to see all the gory stuff and see all the poorly people. Well, the helicopter gets you that, so I really enjoyed that. And flying is just such a buzz as well. It's really good fun flying around. We've got such, we cover such a beautiful area of the country. You can go into HART, which is the Hazardous Area Response Team, which is they've got all the kit, they've got all the stuff, they do all the big house fires, any chemical incidents, any kind of building collapses, they go in, they can work at height, work in water. So those kind of things. Or you can be a standard paramedic and just enjoy that role as well. So that's the route in through that EMT1 route, as opposed to like a normal degree.
And just to thank you, Vincent, that's really interesting. Just to add on to that as well, I've just popped into the Q&A box as an announcement the link to some of the apprenticeship options at NWAS. So when you do a degree, you apply through UCAS, and you can apply for, Vincent before mentioning a few of the universities in the area that do a course in paramedics. So you apply for UCAS and you apply to all of them. If you're looking for an apprenticeship, you have to apply for a bit more like a job. So you're looking to see when they're recruiting, applying on the website. So you may have to do a few different applications for those, and you may be going up against people who people come into paramedics at all different stages of their life, as Abby's kind of talked to us about today. So that's another thing to kind of consider as well. So it is sometimes, you've got to do a competitive application, but that is the same for the university as well. One question I had, Vincent, is around, is being a paramedic as dramatic as telly makes it seem, in terms of the incidents that you go to? Is it a lot of, like you said, you just were saying about the helicopters and delivering babies and like all those kind of big kind of incidents? Is it all of those, or is it, what kind of incidents are you actually going to as a paramedic? What's it actually like in real life?
So we have lots of acronyms. On a DCA, which is double crewed ambulance, so that's your standard ambulance that you'll see driving around towns and cities and things, you get a complete array. I mean, that's the bit that I like about the job, is you have absolutely no idea. It can be, within 2 minutes of getting into work, your radio can go and you can be going to a 4-car smash, the fatalities, you can go to house fires. Those jobs do exist. They're fairly rare, but the thing is, you don't know when they're going to come. The bulk of our jobs are simple falls, elderly people at home, they fall out of a chair, they slip out of bed, those kind of things. Falls is a big part of our job. Medical problems is a big thing. Mental health is a really big element that we pick up now as well. We go to a lot of mental health patients. The thing with 999 is it tends to be when people have exhausted all their options, and then people, different people have different levels of when they'll call 999. So we have high intensity users, people that call almost on a daily basis, which can be very challenging because they have quite complex needs. To make sure that we still treat them, with the uttermost respect and dignity as every other patient we go to, can be challenging sometimes. So we have a real array of the kind of people that we go to. You'll hear that the anecdotes of people can't reach their remote control, so they call 999. Yes, that does happen. Again, it's few and far between, but it does happen. It can cause us great frustrations. And I think that's the bit that, like I say, that I like, is it might be somebody that just is stuck on the toilet, simple as that. Or it could be that somebody's fallen out of a 3-story building. So it really goes from one extreme to the other. And things can come in as and when, and that's the bit that you've always got to be switched on and have a high index of suspicion when you go into jobs to think, am I missing something? Is this just something quite simple, or am I missing something? So yeah, the ambulance program, actually, I was involved in a little bit. I did a bit of filming with them. I think that's probably one of the better programs that gives a snapshot of that softer side of stuff that we do. It isn't all drama. It can just be about holding a hand. It can just be about comforting people that need it at the time of need. And actually, not everybody goes to hospital. Actually, the hospital's not always the best place to take somebody. It's not the safe place as everybody thinks, especially we all know that with COVID. So it's around finding the right the right thing, the right pathway for the patient, which is, you know, a lot of communication skills. You've got to be a bit of a detective sometimes to find out what's going on with the patient. Yeah, so it's a good mixture really, but it's not all excitement.
Brilliant, thank you, Vinny. We've had a couple of questions coming from Twitter as well. Please, can you talk to us a bit about the journey that NWAS has been on from the start of the pandemic, and how is it going now?
It has been really difficult. I mean, I've been responding face to face with patients throughout the pandemic from day one, really, and going out and seeing patients. It was really scary. That's my honest answer. At the beginning, when we didn't know what COVID was, we didn't know how poorly people were getting. We were going out, you know, our crews were out there seeing patients. We were wearing the protective equipment we were told would keep us safe, but our colleagues were getting COVID. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't 100% because nothing is in life. And we didn't know whether we were bringing it back to our families, you know, when we were coming back from our shifts. You know, I was getting changed at the front door, the practical stuff that we would do. I was literally getting down to my boxer shorts at the front door. I don't know what my neighbours thought, but uniforms just getting left there, running through, quickly getting a shower, and then washed stuff went straight in the washing machine after every kind of shift, really. So yeah, it was difficult. It really was. And those bits about the hand holding, we have to wear those big white suits when we go to patients with COVID, or if we were going to do some more difficult procedures. And that's really difficult because we were wearing big hoods sometimes, and you know, that's scary for patients to see. And it was difficult. You can't hold a hand when you've got, you know, 2 pairs of gloves on and a white suit. They don't see your face. They don't, you know, you can't do that kind of connection that we would normally do. So it is really difficult. And it's been a long COVID, as for everybody as well. You know, it's been difficult for a long time now. We've got new ways of working. Before COVID, we wouldn't be doing this on the computer, but you know, so there are some positives that have come out of it. From an ambulance service, we've learned a lot. We've learned how to manage patients with COVID, and as an NHS, we have as well. We're in a much better place now. We're in a much better place in terms of treating COVID, seeing patients with COVID, and managing that infectious part of it as well. We understand about it now. So I think for us, yes, we're in a better place. We're not out of the woods yet. COVID doesn't follow the rules. That's the problem. So the government will release rules, and you know, we can now not wear masks and things. COVID is still the virus that it was at the beginning. It mutates, and viruses do. So we've just got to keep vigilant, I think, both as an ambulance service and as the public as well. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security. You know, the hand washing thing is such a good thing. You know, those kind of simple measures are often the best. And I know I've got young kids, the hand washing is just a pain for them. It's like, you know, but it's so important, simple things like that. You know, we are fighting a bit of a war with COVID, and you know, and it's the simple things actually that they do make the difference. So yes, it's been tough, but I'm glad to say we are heading into better times, hopefully.
Excellent, thank you, Vinny. We've had a question from one of our classes that have tuned in, and they've asked, how do you deal with going to a difficult emergency?
I love that question. I think that's a brilliant question, because actually this that I've got on here doesn't protect me. A lot of people think you put that green uniform on and you're you know, nothing can get to you, but we see some really horrific stuff. We do, you know, and again, it's not every day, but it can be little bits every now and again. And actually the hard stuff for me, again, being quite honest, is not people with legs hanging off. I can deal with that dead easy. It's quite simple when you know the routines of what you need to do practically. The bits that are hard, I think, are when, you know, people pass away and you've got to deal with the family members that are very upset. You might have a connection to them as well. You might, you know, you might have just lost somebody to the same illness that they've got, and you know, you're having to go. So you can really empathise with them, and sometimes you empathise too much. So everybody has different coping mechanisms. I lead on something called trauma risk management, which is the support system, one of the support systems we have within the ambulance service, and that's where peers talk to each other. So you talk to somebody that has shared experiences, and you can do a bit of an assessment to see whether something's affected them. So I've managed to implement that and roll it out across the ambulance service, which helps us support each other. rather than going to like counselling and things like that. We support each other at a local level. So there's some very simple things, and these are good tips for you in life in general, is talking to people. Talking is one of the best things, can be one of the hardest things to do as well, because you've got to, people always reach out to people, but actually you've got to reach into somebody and get them to start talking. But if you can get somebody talking, if you can talk to somebody, if you're struggling with things, that is the best thing. Find somebody that you trust, and talk to them about whatever it is, because a shared problem is often, you know, it's a cliche, but it is halved. It's, they come up with solutions you don't think of. So we encourage that within the ambulance service. We use dark humour as well. So if you do get into the ambulance service, you'll hear jokes that you won't hear other people telling. You'll hear us laughing about things that you think, why are they laughing about that? That is horrible. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism, and it's something we do. With social media now, it does catch people out. And again, another tip for you in life: whatever you post, whatever you send digitally on your little iPhone or Samsung, if that's your phone of choice, it's recorded. It doesn't matter if you delete it; it will be recorded somewhere, and that catches some people out as well. So it's good to talk. It's good to use systems to support each other. It's good to use humour, but it always has to be done in the appropriate place. At the extreme, we do have people going off with mental health problems, and it can be linked to the job. So we do have professional counselling services that we can tap into, and we encourage that as well. Most things can be dealt locally. If I go to a bad job, I may come home, I might cry, I might get upset, but generally a few days later, I'll feel a bit better. A couple of weeks later, I'll feel better, and within a month, you should be feeling a lot better. So there are kind of support systems out there. There's all kinds of things within the ambulance service. We do like meditation, breathing exercises. We have some charities that we tap into that help us. We have retreats that we can use, that we can go out, and get some time away, so that we recognise actually that it is a potential problem, but we have systems in place to support our staff as much as we can.
Brilliant, thank you, Vincent. That's so interesting to hear. I have a question for Abby, and then a question for Chloe as well. So I'll just pop Abby up on the screen. Abby, what is a typical day like taking the 999 calls?
Pretty much like Vinny's just said, very, very varied, and that is one of the most enjoyable parts of the job. So the 12-hour shifts, they're broken up into, you have 2 15-minute breaks in the morning, half an hour lunch, and 2 15-minute breaks in the afternoon. So you have got that time to look after yourself. You don't know what's going to happen until you put your headset on, and you do not know what's going to happen until that beep. There's nothing says this is going to be a cardiac arrest. There's no preempting. You hear that beep in your ear, you say ambulance, is the patient breathing, and you have no clue what is going to come next. So I mean, I could not do what paramedics do. Hats off to you, Vinny. But I think one of the things that's harder for a call handler is we feel helpless at times. At least paramedics are there to see the patient and can see what's going on. We're on a phone, and sometimes you do want to be able to comfort them more. It's so. Yeah, you'll have your morning. You come in. It's usually 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night. We do a mixture of day and night shifts. They run 7 in the night at 7 in the morning as well. Yeah, as Vinny said, majority are falls. We get a lot of falls. We also deal with hospital calls as well, which people don't realise. So GPs may go out and see a patient and realise that they need to go to hospital, so they'll call us, they'll assess a patient at home. We have what's known as inter-facility transfers. So say somebody comes into A&E and they've got burns, they will need to so Liverpool, in Merseyside we have Whiston Hospitals, our specialist burns unit, so we might have someone brought in by ambulance to A&E, and the Liverpool Royal, they have to be transferred over, blue lighted over to Whiston. Okay, so we deal with lots of calls like that. So it's not just emergencies, it's always a very, very varied day, and no 2 days are the same, as Vinny just said, which is just a really good, one of the most exciting parts of the job. You can have some days where you'll just take falls. It's really strange, because I don't know whether Vinny will agree, you'll have some days where it'll be like everyone's having a stroke. everyone's fallen over. Loads of people are. It's very, very strange. It's like you'll have a day where you'll just seem to just get people fitting. Every other call, someone having a fit. You'll get calls where everyone seems to be going into cardiac arrest. It's very, very weird and wonderful. But yeah, it's really, 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 really good job.
Excellent, thank you, Abby. I've got one last question here for Chloe from the Careers Hub, so I'm just sending her live onto the screen now. Oh, there. Hi, Chloe. We spoke a bit about apprenticeships before, and somebody would like to know, is it just 18 plus for apprenticeship opportunities? Is there anything in the NWAS office for age 16 plus?
Yeah, so the thing with the NHS is, in terms of apprenticeships, is a lot of your more kind of clinical side of apprenticeships are 18 plus because of the nature of the work that you are doing. So, and that's the same a lot with our kind of work experience and things. We only often work with people from 16 plus, and that's generally in the NHS. I'm generalising the NHS there. So any of your more clinical stuff, it is kind of from 18 plus. And I don't know if more kind of behind the scenes, we do also have apprenticeships in stuff like, you know, Abby was saying about the mechanics and about, you know, in the NHS, again, in general, we've got apprenticeships or different routes in to do kind of finance work and stuff. So if anyone's listening and think, oh, I really want to work for the NHS, but I'm not sure about, because I know I couldn't do what Abby and Vincent does, because I don't like the kind of unpredictable stuff that's happening and handle emergencies. I could never do that, but you know, I still work for the NHS in a very different capacity. So those roles are out there if you want to kind of support the system. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the apprenticeship options are kind of going 18 plus. You can also join the NHS in general in a job that's kind of more entry level, and there's often kind of training opportunities once you're in those roles as well. So if you don't see an apprenticeship out there, but you're thinking, oh, I'd like to try my hand at, you know, finance, for example, you may be able to start within the office, and they may give you further training while you're in that as well. So that's another option there.
Excellent. Thank you, Chloe. We are very quickly drawing to a close now after all of those amazing questions and answers. Thank you so much to our audience who has tuned in today and for all the questions. A huge thank you to Abby, Vincent and Chloe for delivering this really fascinating talk to us today and for your incredible insights. We know that you are incredibly busy, and we are so thankful for you to be able to volunteer your time in this way. I'm just going to let our audience know in the chat box I've linked our YouTube channel, and this is where you can watch any of our previous Meet Your Future talks with Greater Manchester and national employers from a whole range of sectors and interesting roles. So that does include other talks from within the NHS as well. It's 10:29 now, so I will draw us to a close. A huge thanks again to our special speakers. We do hope to see you again soon, and thank you ever so much. Bye bye. Have a great day.
More than welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.